This is the most engineered building you will ever walk into, and it's not a hospital or an airport. It's a casino. Every detail inside that building, from the carpet under your feet, to the sounds hitting your ears, to the air filling your lungs, has been shaped by researchers, psychologists, and mathematicians with a single goal in mind: keep you playing longer than you planned and spending more than you intended. $71.92 billion. That's what the U.S. casino industry pulled in during 2024, a record that also happened to be the fourth straight year of record revenue. None of that came from luck. All of it came from design. What we're going to do here is walk through a casino together, starting at the front door, moving through the slot floor and out to the table games, and along the way, I'll point out every trick they're running on you. By the end, you'll never look at a casino the same way again. We start at the front door. Two competing philosophies govern how a casino floor gets built, and both of them exist to keep you trapped. The first belongs to a man named Bill Friedman. Friedman's background reads like a screenplay. A former gambling addict turned casino executive, he ran two properties on the Las Vegas Strip, the Castaways and the Silver Slipper, then moved into academia at UNLV. Over 20 years, he studied more than 80 Nevada casinos, and in the year 2000, he published everything he'd learned in a 629-page book called Designing Casinos to Dominate the Competition, built around 13 design principles. A few of those principles tell you everything you need to know. Gambling equipment goes right inside the entrances with no empty lobby separating the door from the machines. The second you cross the threshold, you should see machines, hear machines, and stand within arm's reach of a machine. Lines of sight stay short, and the layout follows a maze, not a grid, with slot banks clustered in pockets that force you to wander instead of walking a straight line. If you can see the exit, you might head for it. Ceilings stay low because Friedman argued low ceilings create intimacy and pull your attention down to the machines instead of up to the room. And here's the principle that ties the whole philosophy together. The gambling equipment itself serves as the decor, with no impressive decoration and no distracting art competing for your eyes. The only thing you should notice is a slot machine. Those rules shaped Las Vegas for decades, and that changed when a designer named Roger Thomas broke every single one of them. Thomas spent over 20 years working for Steve Wynn and designed the interior of the Bellagio when it opened in 1998. High silk-draped ceilings went in, along with antique clocks, skylights, European furnishings, and chandeliers hanging directly over the blackjack tables. His words to The New Yorker in 2014 summed up the opposite philosophy. The traditional layout makes no sense. People don't want to make bets when they feel trapped or overwhelmed or confused. People tend to take on the characteristics of a room. They feel glamorous in a glamorous space and rich in a rich space. And both approaches work, just on different people. Friedman's maze grinds locals through hours of slot play, while Thomas's playground convinces high-end tourists they're wealthy enough to bet big. The goal behind each design stays identical: keep you playing. What neither design includes tells you even more. No windows, no clocks, and no way to know what time it is or how long you've been inside. That part hasn't changed since the 1960s. Look down at the carpet in most casinos and you'll find patterns that are famously, aggressively ugly, full of clashing colors and chaotic shapes. David Schwartz, who directs the Center for Gaming Research at UNLV, has called this deliberate bad taste that somehow encourages gambling. None of it happened by accident. Busy carpet pushes your eyes upward toward the machines, masks stains from 24-hour foot traffic, and prevents the kind of visual rest that might let your brain realize you're exhausted and should probably leave. Breathe in, and you'll bump into one of the most persistent myths in gambling: that casinos pump extra oxygen onto the floor to keep you awake. This is completely false, and the rumor traces back to Mario Puzo's 1978 novel Fools Die, where a casino owner orders pure oxygen through the casino air conditioning system to keep the gamblers from getting sleepy. In practice, it would be illegal. It would create a massive fire hazard, especially in casinos that allow smoking, and it would be physically impossible to pull off because a typical Vegas casino would need roughly 40,000 cubic meters of pure oxygen per day just to raise the concentration by 1%. What casinos do pump in is scent, and that brings us to a study worth knowing about. In 1991, a researcher named Alan Hirsch piped a pleasant odor into one zone of the slot floor at the Las Vegas Hilton over a 48-hour weekend and the money played in that zone jumped 45% compared to baseline weekends. The control zone with no scent showed no change. But there's a catch. That study has never been replicated in over 30 years. The 45% figure gets repeated everywhere, but it comes from a single weekend test, which makes it suggestive rather than settled science. What nobody disputes is that casinos absolutely run commercial scent systems throughout their floors. Now pay attention to what you hear, because this might be the most elegant trick in the entire building. When you step onto a casino floor, the only thing your ears pick up is winning. Bells, chimes, fanfares, celebrations, slot machine, wind sounds are deliberately composed in major keys, typically C major, to feel universally pleasant and upbeat. Losing, on the other hand, sounds like nothing at all. There is no losing sound. In a room packed with hundreds of machines, every noise you register is a win, even though the vast majority of spins happening on that floor are losses. The result is an ambient illusion where it feels like people are winning all around you, constantly. The slot machine deserves its own section because it is the single most important piece of equipment in the building. Slots generate roughly 65 to 70% of casino revenue in the US, and over 70% of casino floor space is given over to them. More than 1 million legal slot machines operate in this country right now. Every one of them runs on a principle that B.F. Skinner described back in 1953 when he wrote, "If the gambling establishment cannot persuade a patron to turn over money with no return, it may achieve the same effect by returning part of the patron's money on a variable ratio schedule." Variable ratio reinforcement means you get rewarded after an unpredictable number of actions. Sometimes the win comes on the third spin, sometimes on the 30th, and you never know when the next reward hits. Out of Skinner's 4 reinforcement schedules, variable ratio produces the highest and most extinction-resistant response rate, which means it is the hardest behavioral pattern to walk away from. That covers the psychology, and now we get to the engineering. Modern slot machines run random number generators that cycle through approximately 4.3 billion distinct values at roughly 1,000 values per second, even when nobody is playing. Your outcome locks in the instant you press the button, and the spinning reels you see after that are pure theater, because the result already got decided before the animation started. What happened in 1989 with the Nevada Gaming Commission reveals how far the engineering goes. The commission caught a manufacturer called Universal Distributing using a secondary decision algorithm that deliberately stopped the reels one position away from a jackpot symbol. That practice got ruled unacceptable, and machines had to be retrofitted. But the same ruling explicitly permitted something called virtual reel mapping, which is a system where jackpot symbols get weighted onto a longer invisible reel and mapped to positions just above and just below the pay line far more often than random chance would produce. The outcome is a perfectly legal near miss, and you end up seeing jackpot symbols sitting one stop away from the pay line over and over again. Researchers at Cambridge published an fMRI study in 2009 confirming what that means for your brain. Near misses activate the ventral striatum and insula, which is the same reward circuitry that fires during actual wins. Your brain processes almost winning and winning through identical pathways. And then we reach the masterpiece of slot design, something researchers at the University of Waterloo named losses disguised as wins when they coined the term in 2010. Picture this. You bet $1 across 20 lines, and the machine pays back 40 cents, meaning you've lost 60 cents. But the machine celebrates anyway, with lights flashing, music playing, and the C major chime ringing out exactly the way a real win sounds and looks and feels. Those researchers measured skin conductance and heart rate during these events and found that losses disguised as wins produce arousal indistinguishable from actual wins. Players' bodies literally cannot tell the difference. A follow-up study stripped away the celebratory sounds on these fake wins, and players immediately recategorized them as losses and played less. The sound alone carries the deception. Later research pinpointed the calibration. At around 19.6% losses disguised as wins, players maximally overestimate how much they're winning, but push that number much higher and they start noticing their balance dropping. The machine is tuned to deceive at exactly the right frequency. The floor traps you, and the machines deceive you, but casinos still had one more barrier to overcome, the fact that losing money hurts. Economists Drazen Prelek and George Lowenstein formally described this in 1998 and called it the pain of paying. Every form of payment sits on a spectrum of psychological pain, with cash at the top because you see the bills leaving your hand and you feel the loss. Credit cards cause less pain, tokens cause even less, and casino chips barely register as money at all. A 2010 study confirmed that poker players bet significantly more with chips than with the exact same amount in cash. And it wasn't a question of knowledge, because the players understood the value. The chip just doesn't feel like money. It feels like a game piece. The industry has leaned into this insight hard. Starting around 2002, casinos rolled out the ticket-in, ticket-out system, also known as TITO. Instead of coins clanking into a metal tray when you cash out, you receive a paper voucher with no weight, no jingle, and no tangible reminder of what you just lost. You feed the voucher into the next machine and keep going, and the friction of handling real money disappears entirely. Player loyalty cards push the abstraction even further by converting your money into points and your losses into play. The entire vocabulary gets redesigned so that spending feels like earning. That brings us to comps, the free rooms and free meals, and free show tickets, and free drinks that casinos hand out constantly. None of this is generosity. All of it is math. Every casino runs a calculation called your theoretical loss, and the formula is straightforward. Your average bet, times hands per hour, times hours played, times the house edge. A $10 blackjack player averaging $20 bets over 3 hours at 60 hands per hour puts $3,600 in total action. At a 1.5% edge, the casino expects to keep about $54. That number is your theoretical loss. The casino then rebates a percentage of that, often 30 to 40%, back to you as comp. A free buffet, a discounted room, a few slot credits. You walk away feeling rewarded, but what actually happened is you got reimbursed a fraction of what they mathematically expected to extract from you. And here's the detail that makes the whole system click. Comps are based on theoretical loss, not actual loss. You can win $1,000 and still earn comps, because the system doesn't track what happened. It tracks what should have happened over enough play. The big programs, Caesars Rewards and MGM Rewards, use tiered structures designed exactly like video game progression. MGM runs Sapphire, Pearl, Gold, Platinum, and Noir. Each tier unlocks better perks, starting with free parking and escalating through waived resort fees, suite upgrades, and eventually airfare credits. The psychology mirrors any loyalty program. Once you're close to the next tier, you keep playing to reach it. Slot players get tracked automatically and continuously through their card, while table players get rated manually by pit bosses estimating average bets in real time. The observation never stops, and when your behavior signals you're about to leave, say your bet sizes start declining, a casino host or luck ambassador may walk over with an offer. More free play, a dinner comp, anything to keep you on device. That's the industry's actual term. Not at the table or having fun, on device. Like a user, not a guest. One more manipulation needs covering, and this one might be the most dangerous because it doesn't come from the casino at all. It comes from inside your own brain. August 18, 1913, at the Monte Carlo Casino in Monaco. The roulette ball landed on black 26 times in a row. As the streak stretched longer, gamblers rushed to bet on red because red had to be due, and they wagered more and more aggressively, losing millions of francs in the process. On a single zero wheel, the probability of either color hitting 26 times consecutively works out to about 1 in 68.4 million. But on that 27th spin, the probability of black remained exactly what it always is, 18 out of 37. The wheel carries no memory of what came before. That cognitive error is the gambler's fallacy, the belief that past random events influence future random events. Tversky and Kahneman later formalized it as a product of the representativeness heuristic. Casinos understand this bias and feed it deliberately. Modern roulette tables almost universally display an electronic scoreboard showing the last 10 to 20 results. The colors, the numbers, the emerging patterns. Researchers have documented that these displays encourage pattern hunting and gamblers' fallacy bets, both of which increase total wagering without changing the odds by a single fraction of a percent. The scoreboard exists because your brain cannot resist hunting for patterns. And every extra bet placed because someone thinks they spotted one is pure profit for the house. Time to lay out what the house actually keeps, because every game in a casino carries a built-in mathematical edge, and the range between games is enormous. Blackjack with perfect basic strategy at a good table carries about a 0.5% house edge, one of the best odds in the building. Most players don't use basic strategy, though, which pushes the real-world edge closer to 1.5 to 2%. Baccarat on the banker bet comes in at 1.06%, actually the lowest standard house edge you'll find in any casino. Craps on the pass line sits at 1.41%, and the free odds bet placed behind it carries a 0% house edge, meaning true odds with no advantage to the casino at all. It is the only bet in the entire building with no edge whatsoever. European roulette with a single zero runs at 2.7%. American roulette with a double zero nearly doubles that to 5.26%. Slots range from about 2% to 15%, and penny slots carry the highest house edges. Data from Nevada's own gaming control board shows that penny slots on the Las Vegas Strip average roughly an 11.7% house edge, while dollar slots average about 7.7%. Keno sits at the bottom with a 25 to 40% house edge, the worst standard game you'll find in any casino. That colorful Big Six wheel near the entrance runs between 11 and 24% depending on which segment hits. And the math behind all of this makes your loss a near certainty over time. Standard deviation grows with the square root of the number of rounds played, while expected loss grows proportionally with the number of rounds. Play long enough and the loss becomes mathematically unavoidable. One UNLV researcher modeled single-trip slot scenarios and found bankruptcy rates for losing players ranging from 71.5% all the way up to 99.8%. The math never favored you, and it never will. Step back out through that entrance, past the slot machines stationed right at the door, past the maze layout and the ugly carpet, past the Big Six wheel spinning under lights with its 24% house edge. You now know about the two designers who built the modern casino floor and why both of their philosophies work. You know the machines rely on variable ratio reinforcement, virtual real mapped near misses, and losses disguised as wins, all scored in C major. You know that chips and tickets and loyalty cards exist to dull the pain of paying, and that comps represent a fraction of your theoretical loss returned to keep you seated. You know the scoreboard on the roulette table hangs there because your brain can't stop hunting for patterns and randomness. $71.9 billion didn't flow into this industry by accident. Every detail has been engineered, from every surface to every sound to every silence. You can still walk in and you can still play. But now you see the whole machine, not just the one you're sitting at.